in live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 34. It's episode 34. We made it, gentlemen. Congratulations. I don't know what, 34 is not necessarily a big number, but we made it. We made it to 34. We're excited, right? Coming back with another episode. This time, we had some things planned for those of you that had jumped into the pregame that we were having on Instagram. Remember, join us on pregame. But for those of you that had joined us, we were talking a little bit about kind of Stu's wild weekend. And luckily, right, we already had a topic kind of going into today that we wanted to really dive into, and Stu had alluded to it a little bit on Instagram, but for everybody on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, tonight we're talking a little bit about these careers and the path of what we should be doing or how to navigate the ins and outs of an industry. Stu, myself, Kobi, Kwabana, close?
Yeah.
Figuring it out.
Yeah, that's it.
We all have different backgrounds, right? We all have a lot of things that we've brought to the table and in our previous experience, and we wanted to be able to share that with you guys tonight a little bit and dive into it. So I know we're going to have a little bit of a framework of kind of diving into a few different industries that we really want to talk about, but I don't know, gentlemen, what industry do you want to start at? Is there a topic or an industry that you think would kick off the night?
How about real estate?
You read my mind. Let's do it.
We're there. Kobi, start us off, man. The real estate industry. You have some experience in the real estate world.
I do indeed.
What is your experience? What has your experience been? Start there, and then let's kind of dive in.
So, I am a licensed realtor in San Francisco, or I guess California. A wholesaler, real estate investor as well. I put that there because when my money comes in, as my money continues to come in, what am I going to do with it? And the vehicles that I particularly enjoy and I like studying and playing with is real estate. I always like structures. I always like buildings. For a period of time, I thought maybe I'll go into architecture. I realized that I did not want to go into architecture for a lot of reasons. And so then I took it from there and I was like, okay, well, I know I want to make. So I was working construction, I believe, junior year or throughout high school, but specifically my junior year of high school. And guy I was working for, he took a liking to me and we were chatting and he introduced me to the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that's really where everything started for me. And I think a lot of people that I meet in real estate start or end up in some sort of reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and being inspired to make some different moves. But from that point.
Oh, my fault. I'm muted on this side. I wanted to jump in really quick because I think that's true across the board. We're actually going to see that as we dive into these other industries. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad, Stu, I'd be curious to hear if you read it. But I think it's one of those foundational things for entrepreneurship, business, like the whole nine. So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Keep
1,000%. It's a must read. It is a foundational text, and I call it, I'll say text as opposed to book because it really does spark the sort of the drive and the motivation and gives a little clarity, but it also lays the foundation. But the thing is, after that book doesn't really tell you how to go about doing it, right? In the world of real estate, I think probably by design has been made to be so convoluted and so complex that I was kind of lost, right? I didn't know what to do. So, long story short, I figured, well, I know my access point is realtors. I know what they do. I know, if you want to do real estate, might as well get my real estate license, right? So I was switching. I was still a teacher at the time, post-college teacher at the time. And I was switching over. And so that's how I got in. I actually moved, got my license, and started working for Marcus & Millichap, commercial, then went residential from there. Learned a lot. Learned a lot. Got drinking from the fire hose, and so let's start there in terms of just like dropping tips and sharing experiences. I think a lot of people confuse realtor for real estate investor. Not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. Like, I don't even think they're close because I've met a lot of realtors that don't know anything about investing in real estate. I've met a lot of realtors that have told me that, hey, wholesaling a property, for example, is actually illegal, which it isn't, right? I've met a lot of realtors who actually frown upon, creative investing. So, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about going into real estate, the first thing you got to know off the bat, realtor, you're a service-based individual. You serve, and you serve for tips. They call that tip commissions, right? That's how you get paid. You serve for tips. And if you don't serve for tips, you're not going to get paid. So that also helps in us being consumers and thinking about getting into real estate, because you always want to know, what is the motive of this individual that I'm talking to? Not a bad thing, but how does this person get paid? That's the question I always ask off the bat. How do you get paid? You tell me how you get paid. That's all I need to know. I don't care about I don't care about much else, because how you get paid tells me a lot. Because if you're not getting paid, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. So there's a lot there. So I always kind of figure, okay, how do you get paid? And I don't knock anybody's hustle, by the way. I always say that. I really don't knock anybody else. I don't care if you're on the corner doing what you're doing. Street pharmaceuticals, if you're doing what you're doing, do what you do. I really, because I think, I also learned a lot from individuals like that, a ton about business, about saving.
Drug dealers are the best salesmen. They actually understand how to run a business better than a lot of people that are actually in legit businesses. The product they chose to move just happens to not be a legit product, but they know way more about business.
And I think
1,000%.
You mentioned like the Elon Musk quote about that, right? He's even on board with that. Was it Elon Musk you mentioned last week?
I don't know. Who said that?
I don't know. I thought it was you.
Maybe. I don't know. But I have no idea. But it's possible, because it's true, right? Like, there's real knowledge out on the corner.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And we say drug dealers, but we really only think about street entrepreneurs. I call them street entrepreneurs. But the biggest drug dealers in the world, my friends, wear white coats. I'll stop there. But the biggest drug dealers in the world wear white coats. At me on that. Whatever the kids say. DM me, whatever.
Whatever the kids say these days.
So that's
Twitter me.
Twitter me. Instagram me, whatever. They are the biggest drug dealers in the world, because guess what? They don't have any laws that puts them away if anybody gets hurt.
That's true. Before we go all the way down that, we got to stay on the real estate side.
Oh, yeah, real estate.
He's ready to go.
He was ready to go.
Oh, man, they get me every time. Every time.
But sticking on that real estate topic, I think it's important for us to talk about it, because there's so many people, and I know people listening to this right now that have heard, like, oh, maybe you should get your real estate license. Maybe you should get your real estate license. Oh, maybe you should get your real estate license. A lot of people, it's a very common phrase that you hear people saying, but you do have to make sure that you understand the difference between, like you said, could be a realtor, someone that's a real estate agent, and someone that's a real estate investor. You do not need a license to be a real estate investor. You do not have to go pass the real estate exam in order to be an investor of real estate. You need that license. Normally, what they try to tell you is you need a license to look up the MLS, right? To have access to the MLS and where all the listings are, and then to be able to transact and sell. But that's not maybe what you're getting into real estate for. You got to understand and I try to teach this on the finance side, and we'll talk about kind of that as well, how to get into the finance world, or, how I've kind of maneuvered there. But I often tell people a lot of times, when you're thinking about building wealth or, right, generating more income, a lot of times the place that you want to invest isn't necessarily the place that you want to make your money. So a lot of people that I see get into real estate sometimes think they're going to make their money in real estate, meaning like their day-to-day income. They're going to sell homes, do all of those things in order to create a lifestyle for themselves. And they're going to invest in real estate as their investment. They're trying to make money in the industry and also invest in the industry. And sometimes that's not kind of the way that it works. Maybe you need to make your money outside of real estate because your goal is to be a real estate investor. So maybe you just need to have access to capital so that then you can invest in real estate. Doesn't mean you need to go get a license and sell homes and buy homes and get in the market. That's a completely different lifestyle or, right, industry technically. So I think people have to understand that clarity, that it's hard to be a real estate agent. It's hard to get into that, it's a relatively saturated market. Like we all know, we can all name 2 to 5 real estate agents that we know in our personal network. Everyone can, right? When you know every human being can probably name 2 to 5 of the same industry in their network, it's a little saturated. That means it's a little difficult to continue to get sales and grow because you got to really stand out, right? But real estate as an investment is an amazing asset class. It's an amazing asset class to have. Tons of tax benefits. That's why Robert Kiyosaki loves it. Tons of tax benefits, right? Tons of write-offs, depreciation, all types of things. But you don't need a license to go do that. And that doesn't have to be your day-to-day work. Those are 2 completely different things. So I think going into the industry, if you ever thought about being in real estate or were thinking about it, you really need to understand what's your goal, what's your outcome. Do you want to make money in real estate because you can see that flipping a home or, right, renting out a property, buying and selling land, you see something on the side that can make you money? Or do you want to go to open houses and, right, bake cookies and, right, put flyers out and, right, do that side to buy and sell homes, to be a listing agent and a buyer's agent, right? Like, is that how you want to operate? But you got to know that there's a difference.
Yeah. Kabi, I love how you mentioned that it was, basically what you're describing there, Chris, as a real estate agent is what Kabi was hitting on about how you are a service provider. Like that is what you do. You are not establishing passive income just by buying and selling homes. You mentioned how a lot of individuals may be getting their capital from another industry, but still invest in that in real estate. I'm actually an example of that. I originally, like the first move I made was to create a rental property in Virginia Beach, actually by chance, because I got moved by construction. We can go into that later when we get to the construction piece. But there are so many different ways to enter it. Like you said, there's real estate investor, there's flipping, there's renting it out, there's Airbnb, there's so many different things. And Kabi, I'd love to hear like a little more detail about how one gets into this industry.
Yeah, let's do it. So I think the basic way to understand this is as an agent, you're a servant. You're not even in the service business. You are a servant. Like, please do not underestimate that. Seriously. Like, you're a servant. I'll say that one more time. Okay. Because that's the life you're living. Like, you are on call, and quite frankly, people treat you like that, right? People like literally treat you like they expect you to be right there to do. If that's not the life you want, please don't go down that direction. You do not need the MLS to find deals at all, right? You do not need the MLS to even evaluate deals. You can totally have that. And since you can name 2 agents, you can always contact them to help you look up the deals and go from there, right? As an investor, you're 2 things. You're an entrepreneur who helps people solve their house problems, or you have a ton of capital to put into something. It's one of the 2. You either have the deal or you have the capital. And I think once I understood that, it allowed me to kind of maneuver and decide like where do I belong and how do I get in, right? So pretty easy to get in as an agent. Take the test, go find a good brokerage that will teach you, not just recycle you, right? So find a good brokerage that will teach you And if you can work with a top performing agent and be under them for a period of time before you get your wings and you can fly, in my opinion, that is the best setup by far. So I would say that's my takeaway from that. Pick your area well. Your asset class doesn't quite matter. It just matters what you can get penetration in, or where you can get your wings and start going. So whether you're in commercial or residential, it kind of matters, but not really. Like the people make a big deal about it, but like really getting going is the biggest thing. Like just get going, like just do more. So I think that's important for, and I'm speaking to somebody like myself a couple years ago who's trying to figure out how to navigate this scene. If that is absolutely your only way to get into real estate, in my opinion, I don't think it's a terrible way to do it as an agent, but if your ultimate goal is to invest, it can also drain you and perhaps put you off or dissuade you from continuing in real estate once you realize that you are a servant and not an investor. So again, investor, you either have the money or you have the deal. So how do you get in? Get the money. There are lots of ways to do that. And that means either you get the money from friends, family, whatever, or you already have it from another source of income, or you can tap into various lenders, and I don't want to go too far into that. I think that's a little bit granular. But you've got hard money, you've got private money, you've got obviously banks, which God bless them. And a whole bunch of other ways to access capital. If you can get private money, in my opinion, that's the best by far. If you can organize private money, hit me up in my DMs, please. And now the other side is finding the deal. Now, if you don't have any of that, which I didn't, right? How do you get the deal, right? You get the deal in a number of different ways. One, buying and holding a property versus wholesaling a property versus flipping a property versus wholetailing a property are all different things. And we won't go too deep into that. I'll encourage you to look it up. It's a simple Google search. But the first step is always identifying and acquiring the property, is lead generation, is like getting in conversation with somebody that has access to or owns a property. And you can do that in a number of different ways. You can drive around and find it, skip trace and talk to these individuals and communicate that way. You can find various lists, whether it's in your county, go into your tax assessor's office, go into your, in San Francisco, it's your DRE, or basically your department, your Department of Building Inspections, looking at an inspection list. You can look at divorce lists. You can look at basically any sort of list that has individuals on it who are going through some sort of issue, who may also have property, right? One of my favorites is probate. I'm actually, that's where I'm actually certified in probate. So understanding the probate process and then stepping in to assist individuals that are in that position by simply connecting them to resources and saying, hey, what do you want to do with the real estate? Right? And then helping them out that way. And most of the time, a lot of the times, individuals I've run into, they don't even want to deal with it because they live in Sacramento and they have a house in New Jersey or something like that. Tons and tons of different ways to get into. I've only listed a handful of them. So you find the deal, talk to the person, come to an agreement. That's how you acquire the deal before you move forward that way. Could be just as simple as knocking on somebody's door and being like, hey, see, your house here is a wee bit tough. I think I can help you out if you're open to it. So the key, in my opinion, what I've seen, the key is simply talking to people. Guys, I don't know how it took me so long to understand that I just hope that somebody else gets it, right? That is the key. Talking to people over and 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 over again. So that's that. Let me see if I had one more thing for you guys. Yeah, and I'd say really it's you either have the money, you have the funds, or you have control of the deal. I don't know of any other way. If you guys do, feel free to chime in there. I think that's probably it on real estate. I'll leave it to Chris to speak on the money aspect of it, but I totally agree. In my opinion, it is the best asset class, in my opinion.
Chris, before he hands it over to you, I think everyone should just highlight that phrase of just get out there and talk to people. I think you're going to find that's a common theme in just about every single industry that you want to hop into, especially if you want to chart your own path as an entrepreneur. Talk to people, make yourself known, build connections.
That's literally why I was smiling, because, and by the way, we need that clip, Aaron, Ash, we need that clip, because that's the one. You just need to talk to people. We can go home. That's the end that's the end of tonight, guys. We're done, right? How do you get into or out of any industry? You just got to keep talking to people. It actually just comes down to that. It comes down to networking and people, because that would be the same thing it's funny. It's the same thing I tell people about financial services, right? Like, just got to talk to people. That's it. But that's where people falter, because this is where it gets into all the interpersonal things of why you don't talk to people, or why you don't trust people, or why you're scared of people, or why you got rejected one time in 4th grade. And now that's why you can't do this. And right, like that's actually what starts to come out when people are ready to switch an industry or start in a new business or get into something new, right? Like that's the stuff that starts to come out. It's too uncomfortable. They let it go back in. So we're giving you guys all the tips that you need. And it's true. Kobi just gave you a ton on the real estate side. He hit the nail on the head. You either have the capital or you have the deal. You're either good at already talking to people or you're bringing in the money, right? But that's how you get into real estate investing. Like that's how you get into it. It's pretty simple. But then you need knowledge. One of the things I always tell people is you've got to have specialized knowledge in order to build in these areas. You have to learn. Kobi has learned. He's studied. He understood what wholesaling was, and right, fix and flipping. Like he understood it. Why? And then he figured out kind of what his lane was going to be. He knew he needed to understand it. That's where it starts. If you want to get into any new industry, we could talk real estate first. You want to get into that new industry. How much do you understand about it? How much do you understand about it? And then, right, once you get that knowledge, then you can start maneuvering. You can start figuring out what your lane is and kind of where you want to go. But yes, to be a real estate investor, capital or the deal. I'm working on deals. I'm not even in real estate. And so I would say, maybe I'm biased. I think real estate's my second favorite asset class. My favorite asset class, and I think the best asset class, is the equities asset class, right? It's equities. I think it's ownership of a business, however you choose to look at that. Some people choose to look at equity like ownership of a stock or a bond, right? Something in the market, passive investing. I look at equities like real ownership of businesses, startup funding, your own equity in businesses, right? I'm the Richard Branson, right? Those guys, they own, 100 businesses. They don't really real estate's a part of their portfolio, but they own 100 businesses, right? I put this out when Jay-Z became a billionaire, when it finally hit that he became a billionaire. Real estate was actually the least of his portfolio. Actually, the majority of his portfolio, 90% of his portfolio, is equities. It's Duce and Rock Nation and da-da-da, right? Like that's actually what generates him way more money. If you actually look at it for wealthy people have 85% of their money in the equity side. Normally it's private investing, startup funding, that type of stuff. That's normally where they have the money. I'm partial to that side. I really think that's the place that we want to start to generate. And if you really want to get a skill set and hone a skill set, you can shoot your wealth through the roof on the equity side. So either way, if we're talking about real estate though, the things that Kobi has already said, I think are the best things to know about getting in. Agent separate from investor. You need the money. If you're the investor side, you need the money or the deal. If you're the agent side, go take a test. And like he said, go work for a great broker. That's the key. The key on the agent side is, are you around a good environment? Are you around good work ethic? Do you have people that will guide you and lead you? Mentorship is incredibly important. Leadership is incredibly important in these types of industries, in any industry you go into. So that is yeah, so that's kind of how I look at the real estate side. So Stu, do you want to jump in and kind of touch on another industry? I think we've knocked out the real estate side of things.
Real quick, before Stu actually jumps in, I think there's a natural segue. I don't know if you're planning to do so or not, but I want to hear about your thoughts on equity.
Yeah.
From yeah. I think there's a natural segue there if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Because it does segue and I'll just do it into the industry, the finance world, right? The world of finance, the world of investments, Wall Street, insurances, all of that type of stuff. That's the industry that I'm in. How did I happen to get into it? It just kind of fell in my lap. I used to be in restaurants, but then I was like, hey, I got approached about looking at the financial industry, and it made sense because the broker at the time said, hey, you're just going from one people business to another people business, right? Going from hospitality to financial services, and the form that I'm in is still more just about people, and it's less about numbers. A lot of people think that finance is more about numbers than it is about people, but on the financial services side, insurance, investments, that type of stuff, it's more of a service. It's more about people, right? So I transitioned, got into the people side, but what I learned quickly by being in this financial world is that there are a lot of different kind of avenues that you can go. Many people, when they think of the financial services world, they think of financial advisors, right? It's kind of one of the first things that pops into mind. It's kind of the first terminology we understand when it comes to money, finance. Well, a financial advisor, technically their role is they are going to advise you in the investments that you should be using in order to get to where you want to be financially, whether you have a high net worth of 10 million or more, or sometimes, right, they're playing in that $5 million net worth side. They're just really guiding you down the path of your equity investments, right? So investments in the stock market are known as equities or equity investments, right? And so that is what a financial advisor is typically going to do. They're going to put you into some forms of equities, whether that's mutual funds, IRAs, right? Any type of investment that they would normally throw you in the market. It's called an equity, okay? So that's passive investing. Buying a piece of a company, a stock or a bond, a collection of them as a mutual fund, right? That's what you're buying. The other side of equities, outside of passive investing in equities, the other side of equities is actual active investing into startups, startup businesses, right? You could be you're in NorCal, right? Like Silicon Valley, near that area. You understand that you could just be walking down the street, hanging out at a park, at a coffee house, and you could be sitting next to somebody that's starting up a business. They're starting up a business, right? Your job, if you said, hey, I might have, very similar to real estate, do I have the idea or do I have capital, right? Real estate is, do I have the deal or do I have capital? In the equity side, it comes, do I have an idea of a business? Do I have the business to put together? Or do I have the capital to invest in a business idea? And so you could be sitting next to someone that could be starting up, Uber. 10 years ago, somebody was starting up Uber. And so you could have come across them and you could have said, I'm going to take my $25,000, instead of thinking of I'm going to buy a house or an investment property with my $25,000, I choose to take that same $25,000 and I choose to invest it in a business, in the equity side. Equities means ownership of a business. But I choose to do it in the startup funding side, where I say, I'm going to make a bet on this company that if I put my $25,000 there, that over the next 3 to 5, maybe 7 years, depending on the plan of that company, I believe that this company is going to blow up. It's going to grow. It's going to get a lot bigger. Revenue is going to continue to grow. They're going to sell it off. And when they sell it off, because I'm an investor in it, I will be able to capitalize from them selling it off because that business was able to grow. The reason why I like this side, and a lot of wealthy people like this side, is because you can increase your returns. You can multiply your returns a lot faster than in real estate. real estate's a very steady Eddie type of investment, right? You put it there, it's going to grow, right? You're going to have some, right? You're going to have some gains. Market's going to go up. You're going to get more value. But in a startup, if you invest in equity in a business, that $10,000 or $25,000 could turn to $10 million in 3 years. Can't do that in the real estate side. There's no real estate investment that's going to be able to, right, 700 times or whatever that is, your investment, 1,000 times your investment in a few years. You have that ability in the equity side, right? And so that becomes this finance world that wealthy people send their kids to school for, so you can get into finance, so you can work in Wall Street, so you can get around the money. Because once you get around the equities, whether it's stock market equities or whether it's people that actually run businesses and own businesses, you start to get it into private equity, right? How do you put private money into businesses? But either way, in this finance space, you're around the money. You're around the money. And so the industry I chose to get into happens to be the money industry, but there's so many different paths that you can go. Financial advisors really are just trying to deal with higher net worth most times. Most times, there's some advisors that don't, right? But most advisors want to deal with a little bit higher net worth because you need assets in order for them to manage and help you. So that's one side of it. Then what I didn't mention is the side that I'm in is the financial coaching and kind of financial planning space. Now, there's professional financial planners, CFPs. That's an actual designation you can get as a certified financial planner. But basically, a certified financial planner is just doing similar things that a financial advisor would do, except for they don't have the license to be able to put your money in the stock market and actually risk it, right? They're just going to kind of plan and strategize for you, right? The coaching side, where we step in, financial coaching, is we're really leading, right? And we talked about this a bit, Stu, I think a couple of weeks ago, just about the freedom that you have as a coach versus a licensed therapist, right? It's kind of the same thing on this side. The freedom that we have as a financial coach versus a financial advisor, someone that has the licenses to do it, is just, it's night and day, because there's more freedoms that we can get to work with the client and help them continue to kind of shape their money mindset, understand certain things about money that maybe that advisor is not really helping them down that path. So there's all these different lanes when it comes to working in the industry, in the financial services, finance world. But just like real estate, there's a difference in investing here and then also, right, working in it, right? I chose to work in a certain segment of it, the financial coaching side, so I could help more people understand their money and get a base level financial knowledge and financial education, and then give them access to some of the products and services that maybe somebody that can afford Schwab or Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley, some of those same concepts and some of those same products I try to bring back for everybody else. But what it gave me was my own knowledge and my own first-class financial education to really understand, well, where would I do my wealth building? Where would I do my investing? And it just so happens, by me being close to it, I started to understand the equity side, the business, the ownership of business. And I think that that's a place that fits my skill set, especially because I understand business and I talk to business owners and I like business. So that becomes my specialized knowledge. Remember, back to what I always say, wherever you're going to invest, wherever you're going to start down that path again, you got to get a specialized knowledge of that. And so I have a deeper specialized knowledge of business. So maybe that's why I'm partial to the equity side, right?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Because I think you say equity to a lot of people and their eyes glaze over. Like, huh? Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
I feel like the first thought with equity is like equity in your home. But in reality, there's so many different ways you can have ownership. So thanks for expanding on this.
Yeah. I mean, if you listen to any, MSNBC and CM, like when you hear them say the equities market, equity, like they'll say it that way because that's what it is. It's just ownership of business. It's the business market. That's really what we're judging. And so when you look at asset classes, figuring out where you're going to build your wealth or where you choose to invest, you just start to figure out, okay, well, what's going to be best suited for my skill set, right? So to each his own. to each his own. Everybody, there's tons of ways to get it. You just got to know what's best for you. Hence why we're having this conversation about industries, right? Because there's so many different ways to maneuver to get to the life you want, but you have to understand that industry that you're getting into, you know?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Anything else on equities?
I mean, I don't think so, man. That's a pretty
How do you get in?
Good question. So kind of exactly how I explained on the where do you want to be, really kind of depends what's your mission. Most people come in, and I'm glad you brought that up. Most people come into this market for the money, right? Most people come into the financial space because they see money. And so if that's what leads you and that's what guides you in the financial space, you know, you're going to have to do the Wall Street thing. You're going to have to go after the high net worth clients, right? You're going to, it might not be the best thing over time because we all know people that chase money and chase an industry and it's not feeding their soul. So I would be very aware of that when you come in. But if you do want the money side of things, then you might want to think about going and becoming an advisor. Get to one of the big firms. Get to one of your Schwab's, Merrill Lynch's, Morgan Stanley's. You can even go with a local firm if you wanted to, but it's going to come with you getting some licenses. You're going to need a securities license. It's heavy studying. The securities license, right? The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, highly regulates the finance industry, right? So if you do want to get in, squeaky clean background, right? They'll look at your financial things. They'll see if you have bankruptcies on your record, then they might not take you, right? You might not be able to get your securities license because they figure if you're not good with your own money, you can't start advising people on what to do with their money. And so they look at things like that. So you need squeaky clean record, make sure you've been good up to that point. And then, yes, you can get your securities license and work for a big brokerage where you can learn the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, the hedge funds, if you can go up that ladder. But again, most times people are just going that route for the money. Where I came in actually on the insurance side of things. I came in on the insurance side because the insurance license, life insurance, disability, health insurance, that side, right? It's an easy way to get in. But then from there, it switched to more financial coaching than just insurance, because insurance is limited, right? There's only so much that you're going to be able to do with those products, but you can still have the financial planning, financial coaching, financial literacy, and education side that really helps people. And so that is for people that have more of the mission-centric kind of disposition, right? If you want to switch and get into an industry and be connected to the mission, then you're going to want to look at more of the financial coaching side, financial literacy, financial education side. That's for all of us that have the big heart that we just want to go help a ton of people learn money and, get out of debt and build and get it. It might not come with all the money that Wall Street is offering when you're doing $50 million deals and $100 million deals, right? But also it might be more rewarding for your soul if you actually help people that you're called to help and that it feels good to be able to work with them. So there's many different ways to get into it. Figure out kind of what you would be doing it for. If you're mission based or you care about people, go in the coaching, education, literacy side of things, maybe even insurance. If you really are like, nah, this is the way I can really make money and grow and make this thing happen, then you're probably going to want to go higher net worth, start to hone your skills, start to sharpen up the tools, start to learn a little bit more about money and start to get licensed. And then from there, you can start building either way. What I will tell you is if you do go up and start getting those licenses, it'll limit you from actually working with some of the smaller people, right? Mm-hmm. If you go up and you start climbing and grabbing those securities, Series 6, 63, 65, 7, you got all these licenses. Now all of a sudden, the SEC and FINRA, all these organizations, they're watching what you're saying. So you can't start talking to people about investment or here's a tip on this. You can't say that stuff. So it limits you from being able to help the people that maybe you wanted to help. I've seen that happen a ton in the industry. I have a few people that I know that went the advisor route then realized that once they got to be advisor, they couldn't actually go help their community. Like the people that they really were called to help, they couldn't help them because they were different demographics, right? And so they had to let go of those licenses to come back and be able to speak and help the people that they wanted to. So bunch of different ways to get in. You still got to know you. You got to know you. And then, that talks.
Quick follow-up. So that's how you get in career-wise. How do you get in as an investor?
As an investor in equities, simply, if you want to do passive investing, a brokerage account, Fidelity account, right? Just open it up. You can start investing in your own stocks and bonds and ETFs and index funds and all that stuff. That's a form of equities investing. The other side, the startup funding, that side, got to start talking to people. Do you know anyone that has a business? Do you know anyone that's starting? Do you know anyone that's entrepreneur minded? Do you have the capital already? Or do you have the idea already? Do you have a business idea? Do you know how to formulate it? Do you know how to put it together? Do you know how to organize your team? And then do you know how to go get investors, or you know how to get people excited about what you do? Do you know how to sell it to someone so that someone may give you an investment? That's a way to get started.
Quick plug on that note. If you have a vague idea and you want to expand that out and make that a real thing and build that into an actual functioning business, hit me up. That's what I do. That's
what he does, right? Because that's one side. Or the other side is you have $40,000 sitting in the bank. You have 30 grand sitting in a money market account. And you were going to go invest it in real estate or something. And you're like, no, actually, my good buddy was just telling me about this business, this vertical farming business he's trying to start. It actually sounds pretty cool. I don't know, but that might be where I get my investment, because he said I'll get my return on that investment within 2 years. And he said it should be probably like a 2x return, at least if I could pull out, or if we keep it long, right? It's about selling what you want. And then all of a sudden, if you have the money, then it's like, well, I'll invest in it. And you sit it there just like you would sit it in gold, or sit it in, right, your other investment thing that you do, or sit it in that house, because that's what it does. The money just sits in that house until you're ready to sell it. And then you, right, take the profit from it. Same thing, just put it in a business. It's harder because now you got to learn business. You got to understand the jockey and the horse, right? You got to understand both sides of a business. If you know someone that's starting a business and you say, hey, I want to get into startup investing, well, then you have to have 2 bits of knowledge. You have to have one, what's the industry, the business that they're in? How well do you understand it? And do you believe in that business? Like, do you believe like that business will revolutionize and change the thing that it's going to change? Yes? Cool. Number 2, do you believe in the person running that business? Do you know what it takes to be an entrepreneur of a startup company, of somebody that wants to build something big? Do you know the hurdles? Do you understand what they're going to go through? Do you think they have it? Because I'm also investing in them. I'm not just investing in the idea. I'm investing in you, the person. Do you got the wherewithal to, like, right, when you get the shit kicked out of you that week, are you going to get back up, or are you going to crawl into your hole? Like, I'm putting money into you. So you have to be able to evaluate both of those things if you're going to invest into a business, the jockey and the horse. The horse is going to run. It's a great idea. And that jockey is going to run that horse because I believe in them, because they're a proven entrepreneur. They're not going to quit. They're going to get punched and get back up. Then I'm going to put my money there. But if you don't evaluate those things, you would have no idea. You're just, again, you're gambling again. Kind of like you buying a investment property and not running the numbers. Same thing. All specialized knowledge.
Amen. Man, I think I want to go ahead and dive into construction here. So for those of y'all that don't know, I spent 6 years in construction. I went from heavy civil, which is all types of highways, bridges, rail, aircraft carrier piers, did a little bit of everything, right? Tunnels. Then I switched into buildings. Specifically, I went into a hospital project. So just to kind of lay the whole thing out, you've got the heavy civil side, which is all the really big projects, your $1 million, $1 billion, or it's just your small little roads, whatever. It's all of the infrastructure. Then your other options are buildings. And then within that, just like real estate, you get to decide, do you want to go into commercial or residential? So I'm going to start at the biggest one, which is the heavy civil. That's where millions, billions, trillions of dollars go every year into infrastructure. There's a lot of money in that. The problem is you're working for the government. That's your client. And what that comes with is intense scrutiny over every single penny you spend because it's taxpayer dollars. Now, it doesn't matter how the government spends their money, but when you're working for the government, it matters how you spend it. So what I want to focus on with that one is if you want to go into that industry and grow on the heavy civil side, go ahead and expect that your starting salary is not going to be what it might be in a commercial building. There is so many more details and coordination that goes into a hospital than what goes into a highway. Now, absolutely, it is. I think one of the things I want to highlight about construction, one of the perks of it is an essential business. We have seen what that means. It means that they stick around because they literally have to be there, especially on the infrastructure side. There's a lot of job security there. Also, if you stick around, you do your job, you rank up, you move up the whole process, you're going to be looking at pretty solid like 6-figure salary amounts. So if you're not looking to go out and start your own business or do whatever, but you eventually want to be, spending your mid-30s into retirement, making 6 figures, construction's a great route. It's slow rolling, it's slow burning, it's not that exciting on the heavy civil side. But for some people, you really like the bridges, you get into it. That's one of the things that really attracted me at first. I want to go to the commercial and the residential side real quick. I personally think that there is way more ability to grow and make a name for yourself and move up the ranks faster on the commercial side of let me actually re-clarify that. On the building side, that's where I think you can climb up the ranks really quickly and make a name for yourself. One of the really cool things about this process is I know a ton of people, I'm considering it myself, I just had to get away from it for a while. A ton of people will learn the industry of all the buildings, et cetera. They'll learn how that works on the commercial side or the residential side working for a company. And then you go out there and you get your own GC license and you become either a subcontractor or a general contractor. And all of a sudden you are now creating your own business. You're creating equity in it. You are also in a great position to build something, hold on to it, and now rent that out or flip it or whatever. You can actually, when you learn these skills and you generate enough capital, you can begin to do this stuff on the side. Had an amazing conversation yesterday with someone that is in one of these extremely small residential startups down here in South Florida where there's a ton of property value. And when you're working on, when you get away from the DOT government jobs with the infrastructure and you move into things like hospitals or things like $1 million houses, these individuals want quality. They are way more willing to deal with your markup, to deal with additional prices that come up. They're not going to beat you down every single time something comes up because they want to make sure that they walk away with something great. So in order of my personal preference, go on the building side. If you want to eventually turn it into passive, that's how you're going to get experience in that. Probably the easiest way to build your construction company, whether it be a GC or a sub, is to start residential. Less rules, less regulation, and there's so many projects out there that even with a saturated market such as construction, you're going to find some work, I promise. For
sure.
I guess moving forward with that, let me elaborate.
I have a question real quick. What is the GC process?
How to become a general contractor?
Yeah.
As your own entity or working for one?
Yeah, as your own entity.
Okay, so the first thing is your GC license. So basically, you are going to have to take a test, which is extremely hard. Now, I have not taken it myself, but I know people who have. They study for it for like a year. I'm sure you could do it less. That person was working full time, but there are so many codes and regulations and just everything, the different types of waterproofing, how high above like the foundation your waterproofing is going to have to go. There's everything, like what wind rating your certain areas. It's very area specific. Once you get that GC license, you're going to need capital or you're going to have to be the one getting your hands dirty to start. So I know people.
Real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like I'm genuinely curious about this. Like, do you go to school for how long to learn all that information to go take the test? Like, how long is that process?
Glad you asked that. You do not need to go to school to get a GC license. I believe there may be a high school diploma requirement, but you do not need to go to college or do any of that. That is not necessary. Now, if you want to work on a infrastructure job for a massive company, you're going to most likely have to go get a college degree. The only time that thing doesn't usually happen is if you work your way up from a laborer to a carpenter to a foreman to an operator. There's a couple different ways you can get up in there, but you got to get your way to superintendent. Once you get to superintendent, you're actually more salary based. You have an opportunity to transition to project management. You have an opportunity to become a operations manager. There's a lot of different ways you can grow, but just know that you're going to be busting your ass and you're going to have a lot of competition. A lot of people are going to want to rise up. Now, when you're going that field route, there's field and office. When you're going that field route, like I said, you're going to have to be busting your ass, but you don't need the college degree. You're literally working your way up through that. But there's a lot of things that people don't necessarily consider. There are a lot of dangers. The larger the project, the larger the equipment, like there's a lot of forces. And let's see, we got a nice comment here. Proof of capital. So we just had a great comment on Instagram. Like if you are going to get your GC license, apparently, especially in Florida, there's a proof of capital. Like they're going to want to know that you have some amount of money to move forward and start with your projects. Thank you, Lauren, for that contribution.
But how long? Like, still, how long does that take? I really like, because if someone was brand new, no trades experience, right? Zero trades experience, but says building things is what I want to do. I want to become a GC. I don't want to climb the ranks. I'm entrepreneurial. I want to go for my knowledge now, and I want to get my own GC license as my own entity so I can now have jobs. I'll hire people. That's what I want to do. How long does that process, do you think, take?
I would say, I'm curious if Lauren has a contribution on here as she's involved.
How quickly do you learn?
Yeah, how quick can you learn it? I think that's the big point right there.
But do you have to show do I have to show proficiency technically to know how to solve, or it's paper?
No, it's paper. It's a paper component, but it is a lot of detail, man. And honestly, like what a lot of people just completely overestimate is their ability to understand how to actually build something. You can know whatever it is on paper, but like when it comes to getting out there and trying to understand field knowledge, if you study for the test, you pass it. A lot of people don't on the first time. If you do, and you have the capital that proves that you're allowed to take the test and you're allowed to, actually get your GC license, if you want to start operating, you're going to have to start with a extremely basic project. I think one of the most common ones is like driveways or landscaping, or just, I don't even know if landscaping actually applies there. But you said what?
Fence,
yeah, just very, very simple stuff as you grow. When it comes to more complicated things like buildings, etc., you're going to have to find some great foremen or some great carpenters or people that are like very, very experienced, because you're not going to understand what goes into this type of stuff, because there's so many things when it comes to estimating a project, so many details that are unforeseen. It's a lot. So as Lauren's saying, it's an all test-based exam. It's all about codes, and then you got to pass. And apparently in Florida, you got to prove you have capital, which I am not a fan of. I don't think that we should be doing that. Really, with any test, that is up to the individual to take care of that. But at the end of the day, it is a very, very profitable industry. If you want to turn it into passive income, you're going to have to start your own company. But if you're okay with working your way through about 10 to 15 years of, maybe not even that, probably 5 to 10 years, depending on your hustle, because it really does come down to hustle and your ability to work with people and motivate people. You can be looking at a 6-figure salary after you get a college degree. After you spend 5 to 10 years, you're going to have a 6-figure salary. It's going to be consistent, but you're going to have to work. You're going to have to prove yourself. A lot of people jump from company to company. And I would say the people who love construction the most are the ones that actually turn it into their own company, go the GC route, deal with the pains, but you eventually grow your team. And I know a lot of individuals like Lauren that are going through that. You grow your team, and eventually you become more and more less in the weeds, hands off. You're positioning yourself to turn this into a machine where you have equity And it can be a really beautiful process, but there's headaches and stress that comes with construction. There's a lot of unforeseen conditions. Anybody that wants to know more about it, hit me up, hit Lauren up. She's a great resource. There's honestly so much to learn about construction. As far as getting into a major company, I'm going to wrap this up. If you want to get into a major construction company, you're going to either need a construction management degree or a civil engineering degree. Civil engineering can take you into becoming an engineer, or it'll like just also take you into construction depending on your route. I chose the civil engineering route, and I never used it. So it's a cool industry, man.
Yeah, the guy that introduced me to Rich Dad Poor Dad, actually, I literally watched him go through this process. That's why I know anything about it. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. He's doing really well now. I'll say passive is a strong word. I don't think it's that passive. I think, but the demand is insane.
That is
I know that.
That is it.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I left was because of the demand and the fact that my heart was not in line with what I was working for. I was stressed instead of passionate. But yeah, as far as that passive piece goes, you're talking potentially even a generation of putting that all together. I worked for Brassfield and Gorey, and I think that when I was there, the man who started it was finally in a pretty passive state, but he was in about his probably 60s or 70s, I believe, and it was his son that was still running it. So it really does take a long time because there's a lot of competition.
Is the money in commercial? Do people not stick residential long if they're a GC, or are they?
I think that just depends on where you live and who you know. There's a lot of money in commercial when it comes to these hospital projects, et cetera. If you're trying to make it, you mean if you own the company yourself?
Yeah.
I honestly, at that point, I don't really think it matters. If you're on commercial or residential, I think you're going to be able to make good money either way. I will say there are some crazy rich people out there that want really nice houses and are willing to pay a lot of money for it. And we see that a lot here in South Florida.
I mean, I'd be thinking, obviously I'm not in the industry, but if all else is the same, I would imagine there's more money in commercial. That's just across the board. That's unless like you're working on insane houses continuously.
That's what I'm talking
about. Because there's just a bigger budget.
There's
just a bigger.
And that's where I don't know if this is just my mindset, if this is what I do, because we just talked about it in finance. Like, I think that there's a ton of money in a lot of small projects, because I think big companies, as they grow, even if it is in construction, tell me if I'm wrong, Stu, as they grow, they take on bigger and bigger projects, right? Because it would be what feeds kind of, the business, right? You take on a larger development, a hospital project, something like that. You wouldn't stick with just single family residence and right duplexes here and right, like things like that. You're always going to kind of go for the money. But I always think that the market is where the money is, because the reason why I'm so curious about this is because I've been wanting to figure out a way to put together, I'm gonna say it right, ideas are nothing to me. If somebody wants to hit me up about it, we could talk about it. But like the AAA of contracting in the real estate, like rehab side of things, right? You can be anywhere in the country and you can call this one place and they can get somebody to you to rehab, right? Like they can contract all across the country to be able to get to it. Because for my real estate investor friends, the number one thing that holds them up is something on the contracting side. It's the number one bottleneck in all real estate projects. Is it's something on the building side. It's either on the plumbing, the electric, the GC, like there's something there. So wherever we can figure out a business, how to ease that bottleneck, it's a game changer because it's common across the board. So I'm always trying to figure out, like, how do we do that, right? What's the process of being able to do that? So that's why I'm curious about this, honestly.
Yeah, that's why general contractors spend so much time trying to figure out how to iron out their communication systems, because the more you have in writing, the more organized everything is, the less opportunity there is for people to have misunderstandings with their estimate, which is going to lead to a lot of arguments and people trying to wiggle out of things. The less misunderstanding you're going to have about where certain things go in the building, which, by the way, can be really tough to rip out. So, Lauren brought up a good point. Residential, since the turnaround time will be shorter. I think something else I'd mention, I think there's a lot more who you know in the residential side. In the commercial side, especially as you go even further into the DOT and infrastructure side, they have requirements, either corporate requirements for a commercial building or government requirements to go to a certain number of people and ask them, how much is this going to cost? Now you're in a bidding war. When you're in the residential side, who do you know? Who just did your house, man? Yo, let me hit him up. Not a lot of people on the residential side ask for multiple quotes from general contractors.
I know. It's true.
So you can, and you mentioned something earlier. Actually, the more amount of money is in the larger projects because your markup is usually a percentage base. Not to mention, the larger the project, the more various people, various subs, etc., are thinking about, they want to cover their ass. It's a larger project. There's more to account for. Yeah. So now everybody's kind of raising their markup. So the GC is a larger percentage of a higher value project. So typically, the larger the project, I think the more money you're going to make. Not to mention, on some of the smaller jobs, it's almost not worth it to mobilize people. I work with some GCs who are trying to grow from renovation to actually becoming more of a GC, and getting out of that bubble is tough, man. It's a very different game, but it's worth it. Go after the big jobs, but it takes time to get there, and it takes capital to cover your ass because things will go wrong.
Cool. Awesome. Is that where we're going to put it? Yeah, that was awesome. I think that's where we're going to put a pin in it this week, ladies and gentlemen. Man, you got a chance to hear a ton from all of us on real estate, finance, construction, just what you need to do to get in and maneuver yourself. That's just, 3 industries, but I'm sure there were some commonalities in there, some things that we can all take away from and say, hey, you know what? If I do want to navigate into a new industry, maybe it is one of these 3, maybe it's not. There's some things that I can learn, like making sure I'm continuing to talk to people, getting a specialized knowledge, really understanding that probably capital. It looks like capital came up in all 3 of ours, right?
The deal and the capital in all 3.
That's right. The deal and the capital, right? So understanding both sides of those things, that's what you need to bring to the table. So if you're listening to us and you want to switch industries and you're sitting at home twiddling your thumbs, get some knowledge, get some information, find the deal, get some capital. Then we get started and we keep it going. You figure out what industry you want to get into, what's going to feed your soul, not just your wallet, what's going to have you want to wake up and invest and put money away, or work in that, showing up every day for 16-hour days, whatever that is. Make sure that it's feeding you. So that's it, guys. You guys have anything to wrap up?
Yeah, I got one more comment. I think in all 3 of us, college was not a requirement. Mic dropped.
What do you know? What do you know?
But you have to go to college.
It doesn't work out that way, right? You obviously just heard it from all of us that, listen, you can make whatever life you want happen. And especially these 3 lives that we just talked about, these 3 industries, these 3 careers, you can make them happen without the formal education of a college degree. You can still go make your dreams happen. So until next week, guys, we're signing off for the good life. Oh, by the way, we're not going to forget, at the bottom of the screen, you see it there on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, bit.ly/email TGL. TGL, it's the good life. Email TGL. That gets you on our new email list. We got some great stuff coming for you guys. Again, 2022 is going to be a big year. We're getting everyone prepared to really live the good life, really have tools to live the good life in 2022. So we're starting it now. Jump on, add your name to our email list. We want to start communicating with you and building this community, again, around these thoughtful conversations around continuing to build ourselves in the areas of health, wealth, right, mindset, happiness, love, all the prosperity, all of these things that are going to lead to the good life, guys. So bit.ly/email TGL, jump on, and drop your email so we can start chatting with you. And man, next year is going to be awesome. I'm fired up. You guys fired up?
Fired up, man.
Let's do it. Until next week, guys.
Down.
That's right. Till next week, we're signing off. Take care.